Hello, my name is Louise Armstrong and I'm a family relationship coach. And today I'm going to talk to you about a topic very, very close to my heart, the mother-daughter relationship. This is the most intense, powerful relationship you will ever have in your life. And it does affect every other relationship, whether it's a partner, with a child, a friend, a work colleague. It really does have that ripple effect. I've spent 35 years in a very destructive relationship with my mum, which was deteriorating until the day came when mum told me she didn't love me and she would never change. Well, that was the day I made a decision and I would change. And today I'm going to share with you some of the tips that I used in my healing, because today mum and I have a deep, loving and fulfilled relationship. We've been on holiday together this year. Mum and dad come and stay with me for 2 weeks, twice a year in Dubai. We're still on our journey. It's still growing, but I have total peace in my heart. So the tips I'm going to share with you today are for your healing. It is all done alone. It isn't a question about having a conversation with mum. It is all about you. This is your journey. So are you feeling perhaps unhappy, resentful, angry towards your mum right now? Do you think she should be praising you, accepting you for who you are, giving you that love you crave? And it just doesn't happen. Have you tried everything and it isn't working? Well, I'm going to share with you some tips that you can start doing right now. So the very first thing we need to do is to face our situation. So take a step back and just look at the situation. Don't do anything with it. Don't judge it. Accept who you are and where you are. We are responsible for ourselves as to how we react. We aren't responsible all the time with what happens to us, but we are responsible how we react. So I invite you to accept your situation and then to accept your mother. Accept that she is who she is and we can't change her. And we're going to take the focus away from your mother and onto you. And this might be the first time in your life that you are actually focusing on yourself and not focusing on someone else. So the change is going to be within you, because when you change, your world changes, and when you see your world differently, you show up differently. So it's all about you. You can only control yourself. You cannot control anyone else. So with this first tip, what I invite you to do is to start a brilliance journal. Now this is going to be used in a certain way, in respect that the negatives go in the back and the positives go in the front. So if you're feeling rejection, for instance, from your mother, and you've been feeling this for many, many years, we want to see where this shows up in everyday life. So it could be that you send a friend a text and invite them to coffee and they don't reply. Do you feel rejected? It could be that you leave someone a phone message and they don't reply. Do you feel rejected? Perhaps on a really small scale, if you give a smile to a stranger and they look the other way, do you feel rejected? So I'd invite you to take a note of this feeling of rejection, how it's showing up in your life. And equally, if you turn that around in your life, you put it at the front of your journal. And this will give you a really good picture as to where you are right now and how those feelings about your mother are affecting you in everyday life. And it was a real eye-opener for me. It really was, to see that I had such resentment in me because I believed my mum should treat me in a certain way and she wasn't. And I was quite resentful in many areas of my life that I had no idea I was actually resenting. So that's the very first thing. Secondly, I invite you to stop. Stop right now trying. Don't try and do anything else. Don't try and please mum. Don't try and buy her the right gift. Don't try and do anything to make her love you, praise you, accept you. Just stop the trying. I invite you to have no expectation from her. No expectation at all. So whatever thought that goes through your mind, do not expect her to respond in a certain way. If you make a phone call, do not expect her to respond in a certain way. We cannot assume, we cannot expect. And it's with this understanding that we don't need anything. You don't need anything from your mother. You have everything you need inside of you because you are enough. So the needing stops right now. And you need to tell yourself, you really need to be conscious of this because subconsciously that's what you're used to doing. So I invite you to get another little book, and these are the only things I'm going to invite you to get. And this is going to be your gratitude diary. And what a gratitude diary does is it starts to create an abundant mindset because you are grateful for what you have and not what you don't have. And this really does start a big internal shift. So I invite you to get a little book, and every night before you go to sleep, I'd like you to write down 5 things that you're grateful for. And when you've got used to doing this, you can then direct these 5 things that you're grateful about your mother. Okay, this might seem really, really hard in the beginning, but trust me, it works. So over time, do them. Firstly, 5 things in your life that you can step back, and it might be a simple cup of tea, it might be you're grateful that you've got your hand to write with, and then move on and be grateful, show that gratitude towards your mother. Okay, now the third thing I'd like you to do, and I invite you to do, is to start releasing some of this anger. Start releasing some of this resentment. We need to start getting it out of us. So if you are really struggling to have any form of a relationship with your mother, you can find a little photograph of her and put it by a candle. Get a nice photograph if you have one. And looking at this photograph, I invite you to try and send your mother some love. Now, at first, I couldn't do this. This was way too hard. I wanted to cut the photograph up, but I stuck at it. So I invite you to set a timer on your clock for 3 minutes and just sit there with the photograph and see what happens. Don't fight it, don't judge it, just do it because you can. And whilst you're doing that, we're going to get ready to write a letter of anger. So I'd like you to choose a time when you're not going to be interrupted. There'll be nobody around. You're going to take some paper and a pen, and you're going to get yourself in a mindset of writing this letter to your mother. So when you're in this space, you're going to write everything you want to say to her. Everything that's happened to you in life, or the pain you feel, or the hurt, or the anger, every incident that comes to mind. And when you get in the flow, don't hold back. Everything, and I mean everything. I wrote down 8 sides of A4 paper of everything Mum had done to me. I felt she'd done to me. I was so angry and upset. And trust me, the tears will flow. It's a very, very emotional time. So as you're getting this anger and frustration out of you, and these words are flowing, when you finish this, I invite you to take the paper outside and burn it. Now, it might not be safe to do so. So if it isn't safe to go outside and burn it, tear it into really tiny pieces and put it in the bin. But whichever method you're using, I want you to watch those pieces of paper. If you're burning it, watch every piece of ash go up into the sky. It's released. Those emotions are leaving you. The same if you're tearing them up and putting them in the bin. So that's a huge exercise, and it does take time to do, and you do need to get yourself mentally prepared to release that anger. So something else you can start to do to really help with you not to have that expectation towards your mother, because we spend a lot of our life expecting them to behave in a certain way, and they don't behave the way we want, so we get really upset. So something that's really going to help you with this is a daily success ritual. Now, what is a daily success ritual? It is simply doing something for somebody else without expectation. So the very simplest way we can start doing this is literally to smile. Is to smile at people you wouldn't normally smile at. You don't know if they're going to smile back at you. So you're doing something without an expectation. Is to perhaps compliment a work colleague. You don't know that they're going to accept your compliment. You're doing it because you can. Perhaps leaving some coins at a car parking meter. You've no idea who's going to benefit from your kind gesture. Perhaps picking up some rubbish from the street. You don't know who the road sweeper is, who perhaps going to benefit from you picking up that piece of paper. So all these things help you to feel good about you, and you aren't expecting anything in return. So these are really, really important because they fundamentally help your change towards your mother of expecting her to behave in a certain way. So the fourth one here is all about you, putting you first, which is really hard for many, many women because we are not used to putting ourselves first. We're used to doing everything for the family, for our partners, for friends, for work colleagues. Everybody else comes first and we come bottom of the pile. But this is a very selfless act when you put you first, because when you feel good inside, everybody else benefits. So it's huge to start looking after yourself. So every day I invite you to find 30 minutes for you and for you alone. Now this could be the first time in your life that you've actually ever done this, and it might feel weird, it might feel wrong, but trust me, it is one of the most selfless acts we can do. So think about what you're going to do for you. Is it perhaps a walk? Is it perhaps you're going to buy yourself a favourite drink? Perhaps you're going to allow yourself the luxury of a bubble bath, all alone and peaceful. Are you going to try a new meditation for half an hour? Are you going to read your favourite book or curl up with a magazine? Are you going to put your favourite song on in the car and just have a real sing and a boogie to it as you drive along? Whatever it is, it needs to be for you, and you need to tell yourself, this is for me, this is my time. You need to plan it. What am I going to do tomorrow for me? I've got 30 minutes. What am I going to do? This is special time. And what this does, this tells your subconscious that you are valued. You are important. You do have value, because many of us who are suffering these destructive relationships with our mothers have very, very low self-esteem. So we really need to build that up so we feel good inside, because you are the most important person right now. So self-care is really critical in your healing. So have a look at your diet. What is your diet like? How can you improve it? Look at exercise. Are you doing something for 30 minutes a day? Get your house in order, perhaps start cleaning and sorting stuff out. Do these things for you. This is all about your journey and your self-healing. It isn't about anyone else. Be very careful and be conscious about who you're spending your time with. Do you feel good when you've been out with certain friends? Be very careful and choosy who that time is with. It's really important who we spend our time with. Your time is valuable. Honor it. Brilliant. So the fifth stage is really the final release, and that is the forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is for you and for you alone. Forgiveness is to your freedom. The forgiveness isn't for your mum. The forgiveness is for you. When you forgive, you decide that you are going to release that emotion. You are going to let go of that need to punish that person, because that in turn is punishing you. So when you get to this stage and understand that the forgiveness is about you, you will be able to let go. It's about facing the pain, facing the heart, not burying it inside anymore. Because when we bury pain, when we bury hurt inside, it grows. It does actually the exact opposite that we want it to do. So I really want you to think about forgiveness. The forgiveness is for you, and it does set you free. The forgiveness doesn't change the past. We can't change what has happened, but we can change how we go forwards. So you can start looking back over your brilliance journal, and you can see where this emotion rears its ugly head. And then what I invite you to do with this emotion in mind is to find a quiet time and to really go inside yourself and see other areas in your life in the past where you felt that terrible rejection, that low self-esteem, that abandonment from your mother. And I invite you to think of about 5 significant situations where you felt rejected, you felt upset, and mum was treating you in a certain way. We are going to give that situation a new meaning. So instead of the rejection, we are going to forgive your mother because she didn't know any other way. She didn't know you were feeling rejection. So when you go back through this process and those situations where you felt that deep rejection, you're going to give it a new meaning, because every situation can have a new meaning. It's just the way you see it. So you're now able to see it in a different light if you've taken those steps 1, 2, 3, and 4. The 5th step now is the final forgiveness. So I really encourage you to work your way through that, because it does work. The release can be incredible. So go back through your journal and choose and think about the most significant negative emotion that's coming up for you. So having been through all of that process, you should be feeling better about you, because it's all about you and not your mother. Your mindset will change. It takes time. It does take time. But I really encourage you to never, ever give up. If you're struggling alone, find someone you trust who can help you. You don't have to be alone. I couldn't do it alone. But I really hope you're inspired by the tips I've given you today, because they do work. They have changed my life. This isn't easy. But the life you're leading now isn't easy either. There's no easy shortcut. But I promise you, it is so worth it to lead that life of freedom so that you are at peace with yourself, whatever the relationship becomes with your mother. It's that total peace inside of you, that you don't hold resentment, you don't hold anger. You have peace, you have love, you have joy, and everyone can do this. Thank you very much for listening today, and I'm always open to answering any questions that you may have. Thank you. Goodbye.